Allow. Reading some creepypastas. A little bit. There we go. That's perfect. Let me touch down real quick. See if that gets any traction.
We don't win the victor. It's just gonna be. I mean, they'll find a reason to.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to TikTok on YouTube as well. I am streaming the songs into TikTok. It is for some creepypastas that I'm reading. Scary stories. If you haven't heard of scary stories, that's what I'm reading. If you want to join me at YouTube, it is the same. Um, what you call it? Same handle, same name. Let me just sounds real quick. They have any like scary sounds on here? Just some stupid sounds. All right, all right. So I guess no music right now. That's fine. All right, I'm gonna get into it. This story is from Ordinary Eye 2710 from Reddit. It's called I Think Someone on Reddit is Watching Me. I did not start writing on Reddit because I wanted attention. That is the lie people tell when they feel or want to feel clean about their compulsions. I started because it was the only place I could put a thought down and walk away without it following me home. Or so I believed. At first, the routine was harmless. Just a throwaway account, late nights and the soft glow of a laptop illuminating an unmade bed. I worked a monotonous remote job and lived alone in a town built to be passed through rather than lived in. When the workday ended, the silence came on thick and heavy. Writing filled the empty space. Writing kept the walls from listening. I gravitated toward the horror subreddits because they offered a brutal honesty. The readers there understood dread, not the theatrical frights, but the slow, creeping rot that settles deep in your chest and refuses to leave. My early posts were small observations. A man who waved every night from the edge of a cornfield, a voicemail that played rhythmic breathing only when rewound. The comments were kind and encouraging, with familiar usernames popping up to offer praise. Then I wrote The Quiet Neighbor, and the atmosphere shifted. It was a first person story about a man whose neighbor stands in the exact same spot outside his house every night, lingering just beyond the reach of the porch light, never moving, never closer, never gone. I kept the prose restrained, offering no clean explanations and letting the reader sit in the raw uncertainty. It performed exceptionally well. Front page, thousands of upvotes, and a flood of messages asking me if it was based on true events. Answering those messages was my first mistake. I replied casually, "Thanks, just fiction. Inspired by a mood, nothing more." I went to bed riding the euphoric high writers get when a piece truly connects. The next morning, a lone notification waited for me. A new comment, posted at 3:12 a.m. No username, just deleted. He likes the dark between the porch light and the street. I shrugged the notification away. It was a creepy addition, par for the course in a community where readers love to play along. But the phrasing lingered like a foul smell. Not the neighbor, not a general subject, just he, familiar, utterly specific. I did not respond. The following night, another comment appeared under the same post, still deleted, with the identical cadence and calm certainty. He can see you through the screen door. The timestamp read 3:12 a.m. I blamed an insomniac troll with a flair for theatrical timing. The internet breeds them. Still, I locked my doors that night more out of ritual than genuine fear. I began cataloging the ambient sounds of the house. The refrigerator kicking into gear, the wind pressing heavy against the vinyl siding, a solitary car passing on the road out in front. Nothing more. A few days later, I posted a new piece, a completely different premise about a woman who hears phantom typing from an empty office down the hall. The standard praise rolled in. Then, buried halfway down the thread, sat another comment from deleted. The typing stops when you hold your breath. Time stamped at 3:12 a.m. Cold pooled at the base of my throat. I scoured my profile, dissecting years of posts and comments. I had never shared a location, a name, or a photograph. The oppressive weight of being watched settled over me anyway. I blamed coincidence, primarily because the alternative required believing the impossible. 2 weeks passed in agonizing slow motion. I tried to ignore the threads, but the compulsion always won. The comments never addressed the plot directly. Instead, they dissected my structure, my pacing, and the precise details I chose to omit. Always deleted. Always 3:12 a.m. I began sleeping with the laptop firmly closed shut. Then the power grid failed. No storm warning preceded it, and the lights did not flicker before dying. Total darkness swallowed the room. The town possessed cheap infrastructure and old lines, making blackouts common. I grabbed my phone, engaged the flashlight, and navigated the hallway to check the breaker panel. The smell hit me first. Damp earth and freshly turned soil. It had no place inside a dry house. I stood absolutely motionless in the dark. The floorboards groaned as the temperature dropped. Somewhere deep in the walls, water moved through copper pipes. I blamed the natural odor of an aging foundation. When the power returned, I stepped away from the keyboard entirely. I needed space to let my racing mind settle. In the absence of new stories, the direct messages began. Private texts from accounts with empty icons and deleted usernames. We miss your words. I blocked the account. The platform simply replaced it with another. I tested the carbon monoxide detector and swapped the batteries just to be certain. I researched paranoia symptoms and slammed the browser shut before reading the results. Then came a small detail, something I wish I had missed. In The Quiet Neighbor, I described the protagonist's house as having a cracked third step leading up to the porch. It was meant to be texture, simple atmospheric set dressing. The next morning, I walked outside to collect the mail. The third step of my own porch now bore a fresh, jagged hairline fracture. I cracked, I traced, I crouched and traced the fissure with my index finger. The concrete felt cold and entirely unremarkable. I laughed out loud in my own unraveling mind. That night at 3:12 a.m., a single notification awoke the dormant thread. Concrete shifts when the ground is disturbed. I stopped laughing. I began meticulously documenting everything. Dates, exact times, digital screenshots. Yet every time I reviewed the files, the data had mutated. A crucial image missing, a timestamp shifted by an hour, a digital note I had no memory of drafting, written in my exact authorial voice. One entry sat alone in a blank document. He doesn't like when you check the windows twice. I wiped the drive clean. The following afternoon, the latch on the bathroom window sat open. It requires a specific, forceful jiggle to unlock. and I check it religiously every night. I sat on the porcelain edge of the bathtub and stared at the latch. The glass offered only a warped, pale reflection of my own face. Desperation pushed me back to the keyboard. I avoided fiction and posted a purely analytical essay on the mechanics of writing fear, arguing that the unknown holds more power than the explicit. It felt safe and detached. The first comment arrived almost instantly. We are not the unknown. Time stamped at 3:12 a.m. I slammed the lid down. My hands shook violently. No more rationalizing. I drafted a frantic message to the four moderators, detailing the patterns, the exact timestamps, and the undeniable escalation. They responded with polite sympathy, suggesting that obsessive trolls often latch on to rising creators. They advised me to step back, mute all notifications, or simply delete the account. Erasing my digital identity felt like a potent mixture of grief and salvation. I hovered over the cursor to the deletion prompt for 10 full minutes. Before I could click, one final direct message arrived. You cannot delete us. That was the moment the floor gave way entirely. The plural pronouns severed my last tether to logic. I deleted the account. The platform logged me out, the page refreshed, and the pseudonym vanished. The resulting silence felt clinical and wrong. Much like a room stripped of furniture, where the only heavy indentations remain in the carpet. I went to bed early and slept in fractured bursts. At exactly 3:12 a.m., my eyes snapped open. No noise woke me, only the absolute certainty that the atmosphere in the house had shifted. I lay paralyzed, regulating my breath to listen. A wet, soft rhythm resonated from just beyond the exterior wall. Not footsteps. It was slow, patient respiration, pressed directly against the vinyl siding. I refused to check the window. The scent of damp earth permeated the drywall. By morning, barefoot impressions ruined the soil in the front flower bed. Deep, heavy, and facing the house. The responding police officers took unenthusiastic notes. They asked standard questions regarding enemies, narcotic use, and occupational stress. They suggested a security camera to ease my nerves. I installed 3 that afternoon, covering the front yard, the back door, and the blind side of the house. Night fell, and I sat paralyzed at the kitchen table, obsessively monitoring the live feeds on my phone. At 3:11 a.m., the perimeter remained secure. At 3:12 a.m., the front camera feed fragmented into static. When the picture stabilized a second later, a figure occupied the absolute edge of the frame. It stood far back, perfectly positioned where the artificial light bled into the dark. The resolution offered no facial details, but the unnatural stillness commanded the screen. The digital timestamp flickered once before the entire feed froze completely. The next morning, the application classified the footage between 3:12 and 3:20 as a corrupted file. I packed a single duffel bag and drove blindly to a decaying motel 2 towns over, leaving every light in the room burning bright. I promised myself the retreat was a temporary measure to regain perspective. The local wireless connection proved agonizingly slow. Yet, at 3:12 a.m., my phone vibrated on the cheap nightstand. A push notification alerted me to a new submission. It was published under my deleted username. The title read, "The Writer Who Tried to Leave." I opened the link with trembling fingers. The prose mirrored my exact voice, matching my rhythm and my disciplined restraint. Clean sentences with controlled, rough edges. The text described this exact motel room. It detailed the neon sign flickering outside the window and the lingering odor of industrial bleach masking stale tobacco. It cataloged the contents of my unpacked bag and mocked the way my hand was unconsciously drifting toward the deadbolt. Then, the narrative shifted. It described the tall, unmoving shape occupying the bathroom doorway, just outside my peripheral vision. It detailed how the thing waited in perfect silence for the precise moment I would look up from the screen. The story ended mid-sentence. I did not turn around. Blood hammered against my ribs as I stared at the glowing screen for what felt like hours. When my muscles finally obeyed, I kept my eyes locked forward, grabbed the keys, and ran out of the door. I am typing this manuscript from an undisclosed location. I refuse to name the city. I refuse to document the date. I no longer check the time. I no longer write fiction. I document this reality instead. Whenever I stop typing, the air in the room grows thick, as if the dark is waiting for absolute silence to make its final move. If you happen to read this at 3:12 a.m. and a cold familiarity settles over your skin, if you entertain the brief, terrifying thought that this is not merely a story, that is not paranoia, that is pacing, and it knows you were here. Very good. Very good story. That was actually really good. I liked it a lot. I'm gonna end this here. This thing sucks. And now I'm ending TikTok is what I'm ending. 11 viewers. Yeah, but they stay for like 3 seconds. Oh my goodness, that was very nice. Let's take this out real quick. Okay, let's see what we have next. Oh, that's nice. Oh man, let me go through it real quick and check out. Get this all set up. All right, that was good. That was very good. Ordinary I-2710. That was nice. I enjoyed that. Um, Evil Twin Short Horror Story. Frank Floyd author on TikTok. Okay, I survived Valentine's Day delivery. Part one. Okay, 2 hours ago. Things that stand far off and do things like that are some of the creepiest things out there because you don't know if it's like, hey, is that actually something or what? So this is from Jess X CAXV. I don't know how to say that, but it is what it is. 18 hours ago. I hope it's really good. Something keeps standing in my doorway at night. The first time it happened, I thought it was a shadow. My bedroom door was open a crack, and the hallway light was off. I woke up randomly around 2:15 a.m. and saw something darker than the dark standing in the doorway. Just a shape. Tall. Still. I blinked a few times and it was gone. I figured it was sleep paralysis or my eyes adjusting. It didn't happen again for a week. Then it did. Same time, 2:15 a.m. This time the hallway light was on because I left it that way, and the thing in the doorway was blocking part of the light. It wasn't flat like a shadow. Oh, hold on. Messed it up. Uh, this time the thing in the hallway light was on because I left it that way, and the thing in the doorway was blocking part of the light, and it wasn't flat like a shadow. It had depth, shoulders, a head. It was just standing there, watching. I couldn't see a face, just black, like it absorbed the light instead of reflecting it. I didn't move. I didn't breathe too loudly. After maybe 10 seconds, it slowly leaned forward, not stepping into the room, just leaning, like it was trying to see me better. Then it pulled back and stepped away. I heard the faintest shift of weight in the hallway floor. The third night it happened, I forced myself to sit up. The shape didn't move, it just stood there. So I reached over and turned my bedside lamp on. The doorway was empty, but I heard something immediately, right beside the bed, breathing, close to my ear. Not from the doorway, from inside the room. I whipped my head around. Nothing. No one. But the bedroom door was closed. I always sleep with it open. Always. I don't remember getting up to close it. Last night I tried something. I set my phone up facing the doorway and recorded all night. When I watched it back this morning, I almost threw up. At 2:14 a.m., I sit up in bed. My eyes are open wide, but I don't remember waking up. I stared directly at the doorway for a full minute. Then I slowly shake my head, like I'm saying no to someone, and I lie back down. At 2:15 a.m., something steps in the frame. From behind the camera, not the doorway, from inside my room. It stands between the bed and the door, facing me. Then it turns its head toward the phone, and the video cuts out. Tonight I'm not going to sleep, but it doesn't matter because the footage is right. It's already in here before I wake up. That was good. Boom. Good job. Uh, um, Jex Casper. That's good. Good little short story. I watched it a lot. Well, the elevator in my building doesn't have a sixth floor. The elevator in my building doesn't have a sixth floor. There's six floors that go up. Press forward, doors closed, go up. Yeah. I've read a lot of those. Some of those just okay, I guess. I remember there was a a scary story about a plumber who was called out for an emergency job to this random place in the wilderness, and he never really turned jobs down. And they said it was an old lady that called, trying to get him out there. You know, she had frozen pipes or whatever, and so he rushed out there. And when he walked in, he seen that there was some people in robes and whatnot, and they were doing some culty things. And the old lady that called was the leader of a cult, and they needed a sacrifice. So they called the plumber and said that they had an emergency fix, emergency leak, so he'd run out there. I forget who wrote it, but that was. pretty good too. Like that could happen at any point in time. Someone could lie to you on the phone and say, "Hey, here's what we need." Oh my goodness. A quiet place kind of thing. Let's see here real quick. I want to read the messages. Excellent massage. Tell the story. Bear value, pacing, tone. Share my latest story. I've been thinking about it and add a new concept to it. Short and sharp. Okay. Nice. This was good. Well done. All right. So a lot of positive things about it. All right. All right. Let's get after it then. It's the same writer. Jessica. Okay. All right. Put yourself out there. It is JESSXCAXV. So Jess Jess X Caspa. I said it wrong. Whatever. Sorry. This one they wrote the emergency alert. The emergency alert told us to stay quiet. It didn't say for how long. The alert woke everyone up at 3:07 a.m. Every phone, every TV, every radio. A loud tone, then text on the screen. Emergency alert. This is not a test. Remain inside your home. Turn off all lights. Do not make noise. That was it. No explanation, no countdown, no end time. I texted my neighbors. No replies. Outside, the streetlights shut off one by one. The city went dark like someone was closing their eyes. I sat on my couch in the dark, phone clutched in my hand, listening. At first, everything was quiet, too quiet. Then I heard something outside. Not footsteps, not voices. A dragging sound, slow and heavy. It's like the third time I forgot about this thing. A dragging sound, slow, heavy, like something being pulled across concrete. I checked the alert again, hoping for more instructions. A new line had been added. If you can hear it can hear you. My breathing sounded impossibly loud. The dragging stopped outside my building. Something sniffed. I don't know how else to describe it. A wet, searching sound moving along the walls, pausing at doors. Someone in the building screamed. The scream cut off instantly. My phone buzzed again. Alert update. Do not respond to screams. They are not human anymore. I covered my mouth with both hands. Someone began knocking. Not banging. Not breaking in. 3 slow taps. From the inside of my front door. I froze. My living room door handle turned slightly. Testing. A voice whispered through the wood. I know you're awake. It sounded like my neighbor. I didn't answer. The whisper continued. You left your lights on earlier. I saw you. I hadn't, had I? My phone vibrated violently. Final update. If it speaks, do not listen. If it enters, do not look at it. The knocking moved down the hall, door to door, testing, listening. When it reached the apartment next to mine, I heard someone unlock their door. I heard wet movement, chewing, then silence. The knocking stopped outside my door again. This time the voice didn't whisper. It spoke clearly. I'm done pretending. The door handle turned all the way. My phone lit up with one last alert. This is why we asked you to stay quiet. I don't know how long it's been. My battery is almost dead. It's standing in my living room now. I can hear it breathing, waiting for me to make a sound. All right, that's a very good one. That's a very good one. The anticipation of the creature, just not like I said, not jump scares. This person is writing in collective good tones. Like everything is well paced, everything is um, sat upon nicely. There is no there's no rushing, there's no waiting, uh, there's no how do I want to say this? Like you're not sitting there being forced into a situation. There is context of what's happening, and then there's the consequences of somebody doing something they shouldn't do. And now that it's inside, oh man, it's not even gonna get you yet. It's gonna wait for you to mess up, and I doubt it's gonna leave. It's probably just gonna sit there and wait for him, because like I said, if you hear screams and whatnot, don't acknowledge it because they're no longer human. So that means that it just spreads. So that thing that's in his living room has forever to wait because it's separating and it's moving out. So I don't know. I think Buddy's cooked. Oh, comment. There you go. Good. Let's do some no sleep. See what this is all about. Revised guidelines. So this on no sleep, they've changed things to where it is now required to be in first person. It is something that okay. They put I appreciate it, thank you. Alright, yeah. So um no sleep has put the you have to have everything in first person narrative. The person who's reading it cannot be dead. They cannot be from the future or from the past. It has to be in present tense. Has to be actively happening in a way that um, it makes you think that it is actively going on. So there's a safe space for them to write this. So if they would reasonably not write, they would not be putting this story up. So I like it. I think that it gives constraints on how to write. So it makes people have to think a little bit more than like finding a holotape in Fallout 4. That's basically what we do on some of these horror stories. Is you find a story that someone wrote or recorded or whatnot, and then you go from there. So I like the constraints on here. Um, what is this? The idiot's boss. All right, let's try this one. There's one little thing. There's 22 comments on this 17 hours ago. Let's get into this one. Uh, like I said, the author's name is The Idiot's Boss. His story is titled I Thought I Lived Alone. Let's get the music rolling real quick. For 3 months, my roommate paid rent and never came home. It seemed like the best house share I'd ever had. Finding someone in the city is always a risk. Desperate ads and 10-minute meetings with strangers. Trying to decide if you can trust them in your home. After my last arrangement ended with my roommate trying to install a home podcast studio in the middle of the living room at 3 a.m., all I wanted was something uncomplicated. I want to pause right here real quick because I had a house share area, and there was a guy who was setting up cameras all around the house. He set up a camera outside of his room, looking down the hall towards my room. He set up a camera in the living room that was shared behind a like it was a metal wall hanger thing, and he had the audacity to put a camera there without us knowing, and then there's a camera going towards the laundry room so he can see who can go in and out. Now, mind you, there's 5 people that live in this house. There's 2 upstairs, or 3 upstairs, and 2 downstairs. So it's a big house. You know, there's 5 bedrooms. So we all get a room, shared kitchen, shared everything else. But this guy who just recently moved in decided that it was okay for him to start putting up cameras to record everybody else. Um, he ended up moving out, but me and my wife have a little joke among us. There's this time where we made some ice cream cakes in a bowl. It was layered, and it had like Oreos, Twix, Reese's, Butterfingers with ice cream in between layers, so we could cut it out. This guy walked downstairs, looked at both of us, and said, "Is that for consumption?" That's still it. We do that all the time. If we make something that looks kind of crazy, we just say it out of nowhere. All right, back to the video, back to the story. Sorry, I apologize. All right, uh, someone who pays the rent on time and basically stays out of my way. Leo seemed perfect for that. He was a geological consultant and worked overseas constantly. According to the ad, he was sometimes gone for months at a time. He just needed a home address, somewhere to store some belongings, and a place to crash a few times a year, for maybe a week, or so every few months. What he was willing to pay in rent seemed like a lot. I considered he'd barely lived there, but he explained that ease was more important than price for him, and he liked my apartment's location. We met once in a coffee shop. He was normal, polite, clean cut, firm handshake, and by the time we'd finished our coffee, he had transferred 3 months' rent plus the security deposit. He was off to South America the next morning and said he wouldn't be back for 3 months. He moved his stuff in that afternoon when I was out, so I never saw him. It seemed like the perfect scenario. A roommate who existed only on paper. For 2 months it was. The apartment was silent and calm. It felt like I had the place to myself, only cheaper. Then little things started happening. The first time was subtle enough. I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. A framed photo of my sister and I, which I usually kept on the table near the front door, was on the living room bookshelf. I stood there for a long minute, trying to remember putting it there. I couldn't recall ever touching it. I was busy, tired, stressed with work, so it seemed like the obvious explanation that I'd done it subconsciously and forgotten. I put it back and tried not to think about it. A week later, my favorite coffee mug went missing. It wasn't in the cupboards, the sink, or the dishwasher. After about 10 minutes, I found it in the bathroom sink. I tried to remember bringing coffee into the bathroom, drinking it while I brushed my teeth, but no memory came. I again told myself I was being too stressed, too forgetful. But the apartment began to feel different after that. The quiet that had previously been calming was now watchful. The building creaked and settled at night the same way it always had, but each sound seemed more intentional. Then the food started to disappear. Not in large quantities, nothing obvious. A single apple from the bowl, a missing slice of cheese from a new package, the kind of thing you doubt yourself over. I started paying more attention to the fridge contents. The next day, the pull tab of a can of soda was on the counter. I hadn't opened it. It was at that point that true dread began to sink in. Leo's door at the end of the hall remained shut. He had now been gone for almost 3 months. We'd only corresponded via email twice. once for the rent confirmation, and once because I asked him how the project was going. Indefinite. Project extended. Hope all is well. One evening, when I came home, I noticed a smell. Faint, but definitely there. Earthy, metallic, and slightly damp. It was wrong. The smell seemed to come from Leo's room. I sniffed closer to his door. Was something forgotten inside? Spilled where he left? But it didn't smell like anything specific thing I could think of. That night I woke up to a soft scraping sound from the hall. I sat bolt upright, straining to hear. I watched the crack of light under my door, expecting a shadow to pass. No shadow came. I eventually decided it was just the old building shifting. The next morning, I found the footprint. It was on the kitchen tile, just a few feet from Leo's door. A muddy imprint from the foot of a boot with dark soil clinging to it. My blood went cold. The smell, the food, the mug, the footprint. Someone had been inside my apartment. I considered calling the police, but what would I say? A moved mug, some dirt on the floor? I knew what the response would be. For the next week, I jumped at every sound. I put a chair against the bathroom door at night. I couldn't tell which thought was more frightening, that I wasn't alone in the apartment or that I was actually losing my mind. But then, last Tuesday night, I came home and noticed Leo's door was ajar. It hadn't been opened in months. I just stood at the entrance, paralyzed. Leo? No answer. Leo, are you home? Nothing. My hands were trembling as I made my way down the hallway. I pushed the door open further and felt for the light switch. The room was completely empty. There was no bed, no dresser, no boxes or possessions. Nothing. It was as if no one had ever lived in the room at all. The only thing I could see in the room was a Polaroid photograph taped at eye level on the opposite wall. I walked across and peeled it from the wall. It was me, sleeping in my own bed, taken from the foot of the mattress. My face looked ghostly and blank from the flash. The chair was visible, jammed against the handle of my bedroom door, in the background of the photo. It was dated on the back from the night before. My stomach clenched, and I stumbled backward, my heel catching on something on the floor behind me. A canvas duffel bag. Inside, tangled and muddy with thorns clinging to them, were my clothes, and photos of dozens of them, of me cooking, sitting on the couch, watching TV, standing by the sink. In the side pocket of the duffel bag, a small plastic bag contained chunks of my hair and nail clippings. I ran. I left my apartment without any of my belongings, calling the police from the nearest gas station 2 miles away. When the police searched the apartment, they found nothing. Leo's room was empty and clean of all evidence. There was no duffel bag, no photographs, and no scent of him lingering in the room. The landlord stated that Leo had paid his rent and didn't seem to know anything about him. Leo's cell number was disconnected, and the only record of his presence being a driver's license linked to a P.O. box. I moved cities 2 days ago. I can't say where I am. I have 3 locks on my front door, and each night I wake up with a distinct feeling that someone is standing in my doorway, watching. I thought I had found the perfect roommate, someone who was never there. The truth was, he was always there. Huh. Very good. Very good read. I liked it a lot. Definitely had a good tone to it. I believe I shouted this person out. Yeah, the idiot's boss. Okay, I did. All right, I had to make sure. Had to make sure. All right. I think that's okay. Which one of these gives you a paranormal vibe? Um, if I was gonna say which one gave off paranormal vibe, I would probably say this one right here. This one right here. For some reason, it feels like something's locked inside of it. But who's to say? You know? Oh my goodness. What are we going for? About an hour. Okay. Yeah, I've read three stories. I think that's a good point to call it right here. Um, I might come back and do something else later. Who knows what I might be doing? I'm gonna go ahead and stop. I wasn't recording? No. All right, well, I guess it does it for me. I'll see you guys later. Bye.